Hey allihopa, hello everybody. I will introduce Khushi Kabir very quickly before she will hold a session for 20 minutes. My name is Erwér and I'm the director of the Svalorna Indien Bangladesh. And as an organization we work with natural resources in the nexus of human rights. And Nijera Kori, which Khushi is the director for, is one of the partner organizations that we work with. And Nijera Kori, that Khushi has been working with since 1980s, is a large movement, social movement in Bangladesh. It has organized, mobilized 200,000 landless peasants in Bangladesh. And just the name Nijera Kori stands for "We are doing it ourselves," which really reflects the organization in terms of mobilizing with the people, not for people. And Khushi then, been working with Nijera Kori for many years, but that is one part of many sides of Khushi. She's also a feminist activist. She's been also connected to many of the big international and South Asian networks as a feminist and as an activist. Khushi has also been a lot in media and in television in Bangladesh, but also a street activist. So I'm really, really honored to have you here and speak about democracy and where is Bangladesh today. Please.
Thank you, Monica. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, thank you. I almost didn't recognize myself when Monica introduced me. I'm going to be speaking about freedom of speech and what does it mean for Bangladesh and does it exist in Bangladesh. I just want to say that, freedom of speech is a basic, inalienable right of every citizen in this world. And very often, regimes that are insecure because they're very distant from people are afraid of what the impact of freedom of speech can have on the people that the regimes are very alienated from. And Bangladesh is no exception. And Bangladesh is not the only country where freedom of speech is problematic. There are many other so-called democracies across the globe, long-standing so-called democracies, where you have variations and limited versions of what is called freedom of speech. Up to how much is freedom of speech acceptable, what level, what kind, all those definitions are very much there. I'm taking Bangladesh as the country because that's the country I've been born in, I live in, and I work in. And at the current time I am here now, presently, in this globe that we are in and in the country that I come from and live in, freedom of speech has come to mean a lot more than what it did before is just a number of words. It is very important for all of us. And for Bangladesh, I do not stand for ultra-nationalism of any kind, but I thought for many of the people in the audience here who may not know about Bangladesh very much, it's a country that's unique because in 1971, and prior to that, there was a huge movement which culminated in 1971 with the people of the country, the peasants, the workers, the youth, the students, the women, the indigenous peoples, all fighting for creating their own nation and homeland based on certain principles, of which two, I think, and I believe in, are the most important. One is democracy, and the other is secularism. We fought for this country because we were under a state that had a religious identity. And we were fighting to move away from that position of a state based on religious identity to a state that was secular. And that is why freedom of speech and what is happening in Bangladesh today is very, very important. It's important for all of us who remember 1971, but what we have seen is that the youth are also aware of what happened in 71 and want to own that. So the freedom of speech and all its manifestations and what it means is important to everybody within Bangladesh. It is very important for me as a woman. It is important for women everywhere. Because very often, all our systems, which are based on extremely patriarchal notions of what is governance, of what is democracy, of what is independence, of what is freedom, of what is accountability. All these buzzwords are very different from how a woman would perceive it and how a feminist would perceive it. So I would speak to it from the point of view of a woman from Bangladesh who calls herself a feminist, who works with the most marginalized people in the rural areas of Bangladesh, but also in Dhaka itself. I think the number of years I have been active has given me a certain level of exposure which allows me to speak out as much as I could. I have, sitting here in the audience, I see some extremely strong stalwarts who I would like to honor and who I feel are people who are role models for many, many, many people here, who have been forced to leave their country and go into exile for writing, for publishing, for stating, and being who they are. And I would really like to say that I'm extremely honored to find them in the audience here today. And if they do not mind, I would like to take their names and ask them to stand up. If anyone has any objections, do not. I'm looking at two of you. If you nod your head or say no, I just want people to recognize you, that when I speak, it would make it more real. So there's a name that many of you know because she has been writing and been in exile for over 2 decades. Taslima Nasreen, it was an honor to have met you, and I would like to thank you for coming to this presentation today. Do you want to stand up a little? Thank you. And Ahmad Rashid Tutul, who's now in exile in Norway, who published books that he's here today, he spoke, and he has recently, just at the beginning of this year, had to come to Bangladesh because on the 31st of October, he was attacked very brutally. And it is just per chance that he's alive and surviving today. But his life was at risk, and he has just escaped narrowly. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come and listen. The reason I asked for these two names is so that you could see that there are many more who had to leave the country and come away precisely because of freedom of expression. Our Constitution, Article 39, talks about freedom of speech and expression. So we have that in our Constitution, and it talks about the right and the freedom of movement, the assembly, and freedom of association, all of which is guaranteed. Article 32 is related to, Article 38 is freedom of expression, freedom of movement and assembly. Article 32 is right to life and liberty, which we can explain to mean right to be able to state what one wishes to state. But we have had many laws that contradict your basic right that is given to you in your Constitution. And over the years, these laws come up and are misused. The problem with many of these laws, for whatever reason they have maybe been enacted, and they often give us very good reasons as to why these laws are enacted, is that the way the laws are formulated, and I'm not a lawyer, the way the laws are formulated give anyone a lot of scope for misinterpretation, a scope for interpretation in the way you wish, and the scope to use it in the way you wish. You have the criminal CRPC, the Codes of Criminal Procedure, which was drafted in 1898. And Section 54, which says anyone can be detained as if one receives a complaint from anybody or from the government. And this is most misused all over Bangladesh, not just freedom of expression. Anybody, you want your right to your land and you want right to your home, somebody else writes a complaint about you, you can get arrested under that. You have the Penal Code 1816. 1860 means it was drafted in 1860. So you can see how archaic these laws are. Section 500, under offense of defamation, you can get 2 years or fine or both. What has recently come up is the Information Communication Technology Act 2006, Section 57, most misused at the moment. And the Anti-Terrorism Amendment Bill 2013, and under the scope of the article, which came about in 2009, the ICT Act, Section 57, allows anyone to be arrested if anyone feels that their feelings are hurt or in any way being attacked or feeling vulnerable. Now, these words, vulnerable, hurt, be feeling attacked, it's all a feeling. And this law has been misused the most. Anybody gives a like on a Facebook page, you've had it. You may be arrested. If you write something that may critique the present government or any government, you may have it. You may be arrested under that. You may critique something in saying that why is this being done? You may be arrested. So this scope for being arrested, luckily, in many cases, the judges have given bail and a lot of the people are still able to move. But there are a lot of people who are very vulnerable and afraid of this, especially at the current time that we are talking about. Bangladesh, I don't know if you've been reading the news, there have been a series of attacks of using, in the name of religion, anti-terrorist attacks in Bangladesh and terrorist attacks in Bangladesh. And now when we have our governments or representatives of our governments saying that you must not state something in a way that may hurt the feeling of the majority of the people of the country who profess to be under Islam or are Muslims, then obviously you're asking for it. Now, when you give a message like that, you're giving a very clear message that it is all right to attack if you're doing it in the name of religion. What they're not stating is every religion has many different sects, many different analyses, many different ways of believing in that religion. So what you may feel hurts you, even of your same religion, it may not hurt. It may be something that hurts others too. Even a statement that has just been given, which I just stated was given by the government, may hurt the sentiments of somebody else. So the freedom of expression becomes even more problematic because it gives scope for, in the name of religion, to attack and take away lives of people, which has been happening, and which has now led to a lot of people feeling very, very vulnerable because of that. I just want to say, because I don't have very much time left now, that so what we are actually doing is going back on the principles of what we fought our liberation war for. And I think it's very important that we bring that up again and again. even with our present government, which were in the leadership at the time of the Liberation War. Remind them what their promises were, and remind them as citizens of this country who fought a war, we are not going to keep quiet. But in the meanwhile, this happens. This is not an isolated case. This is part of an international, globalized system and campaign of phobia that is being created, xenophobia. There is, and I understand, coming in Sweden and coming to Europe, that there is an Islamophobia going on everywhere. And many people have this dilemma that if you are wanting to be liberal, you want to be open, you don't want to feel that you are pushing away somebody who's not, within quotes, a Christian, then what position do you take? I would just like to appeal to all of you that please look at everything in depth. Just look at, no one's asking you to be Islamophobic or support Islamophobia. I'm just asking you to say that it is time that we begin to look much deeper and support movements for freedom of expression, freedom of thought, freedom of movement, and freedom of people to be able to survive. And that is what you need to do. I think in our attempt to try and not be ultra-right and ultra-conservative, it's important that we don't go the other way, which is ultra-right and ultra-conservative of another religion. I just want to say that this is linked very strongly to the economic globalization that is going on. Because economic globalization thrives on the kind of economic exploitation and extraction, and so does patriarchal religions and nature thrive on the same. They go hand in hand together. So our slogan is actually a feminist international needs to be created and solidified. And being a feminist does not mean that only a woman can be a feminist. Men can be a feminist and women can be totally patriarchal, as we have seen. So I would invite the men in this group who are also feminists to join with us in our struggle to counter globalization. We want a feminist international. We want to use, I just want to end by saying, what are the methods that we want to use? I think culture is an extremely strong medium. We want to use theater, songs, because the tradition in Bangladesh, where I come from, has been writing, has been poetry, has been songs, has been theater. And I find that in the villages, it's a lot of the young people who are now trying to push an Islamist particular kind of theology onto even their parents who are more liberal. So now I just want to state that the way to bring these people back is use of culture, of theater, of music. And I just have in this clock 1 minute left, so I'll just say, I want to say that it is extremely important that if we want this globe, this world, this earth that we live on to be healthy, to be free for all its citizens, we need to act together. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll just end with one little slogan. A friend of mine who's a South Asian and international feminist, she states, we do not want the love of power, but the power of love. So it's the power of love that we want to spread across. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khushi. It's always wonderful to hear you talk. Thank you.